All right, how's everybody doing? It's amazing. All right, here we go.
There's a lot of teams across the league have sort of gone away from the Saturday walkthrough into more of a practice format, I guess. What do you guys do on Saturdays exactly?
Just try to get ready for the game. Just, have meetings, have a good, good Saturday, walk through, run through some different scripts, things like that. So.
It's not really practice.
Yeah, it just depends on, whatever we feel we need that day. It depends. Sometimes we have afternoon games, some we have night games. It just kind of depends. That Saturday schedule is really always a little bit revolving.
Jim Bob talked the other day just about the different looks that the Mike Pettine's defense kind of gives at you, and I know they're bringing a lot of pressure. It seems like from the slot, especially. What sort of challenges do they present for you?
Yeah, definitely. He's got all different kinds of combinations of pressures. Obviously, kind of brought up with the Rex Ryan sort of multiple different looks and pressures defense. Definitely has modified into some of his own things that he does. Definitely some blitzes from the nickel. There's double pressure from both edges based on formation. There's overload pressures. There's linebacker pressures. There's pressures that then drop into max coverage. So you'll see a lot of guys in the line of scrimmage, and those guys will pop out. So it's just that kind of continually moving fronts and different looks of the ways that they attack the offense. And they have a good balance and combination that go along with it to help disguise all of those, so it's not always the same thing. That's what makes it so difficult. And then he's really doing a good job now of mixing both man coverage and zone coverage with that. So it's really a combination as opposed to maybe before it was just a little bit more man traditionally in that system. There's enough now where there's some zone principles where they can pass off some of those receivers and some of those guys where you see the pressure, you think it's man, but it really winds up going to an open or eligible kind of coverage player that you got to be careful with some of those throws.
They've got some interest in the wide receiver position. I think they've already ruled out Randall Cobb for Sunday's game. Just what are those three rookies? What have you seen from those guys on film? Are those guys that can step in?
I think they've done a really good job with their rookie class on both sides of the ball. In skill position. From the defensive perspective, with those guys and the wide receivers specifically, answering your question, big, tall, long guys that can push the ball vertical. Really kind of do a great job of stressing the defense. A lot of that really for him with the quarterback, with Rodgers, some of it's going to be just little nuances in routes where he's going to see leverage, he's going to see a coverage, he's going to see something specific, and he's going to change something just kind of real quick and give it to it. So those experienced receivers that he has in there, he's able to kind of get on the same page with those guys pretty quick. I'd say just in general right now, it looks like he's kind of getting those guys caught up pretty fast on tape. Kind of looks like they don't really miss a beat as far as that's concerned. So really good production out of those guys. Definitely part of that offense in general where, when plays break down, they get extended. Those guys with the speed and the size that they have do a good job of getting open and creating big plays for them.
Jake Rudock has a unique and important role, I think, every week doing scout teamwork and imitating the opposing quarterback. I just wondered what goes into that. How much time is invested to, recreate Aaron Rodgers or Cam Newton or the different guys you're facing every week?
Yeah, that's a big challenge each week for those guys on the show teams to help us out. In particular, the quarterback is always important. It's kind of just one of the key components when you're trying to get ready for an offense, especially one that has so many different variations to it or freedom. Maybe, and you're trying to simulate that. So Jake's done a great job of studying, and we're giving him some different things to be able to help us in practice with that too, and just comes out every single day. And Matt obviously helps out with that also. So those guys do a good job. They try to do their best, and you try to study and mimic those guys the best you can, and give us the realistic look, which those guys are doing a good job of.
His mobility, I guess, in particular, just because there's so many unique quarterbacks, but his mobility does that make him, I guess, a little bit more valuable in the way he can show some of those quarterbacks in the league?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a mobile quarterback, you certainly want a guy back there that can move. And both Matt and Jake do a good job of doing, they're both very athletic guys. So they can simulate that the best they can. I would say there's probably only one Aaron Rodgers. So we're trying to do the best we can with that.
I was wondering one thing about switching conferences and all that from AFC to NFC. I wonder if you sort of get a sense of rivalries that develop in the Midwest that might not be so apparent when you're in New England.
Yeah.
If there's any, even including the Big Ten and all that other stuff.
Sure.
Midwest brand.
Rivalries are great. They're a great part of the game, great part of any sports tradition. Certainly, growing up in New York, we've had just being a sports fan growing up, there was some good rivalries there. Being in New England, obviously some good rivalries there. I'll say this: these are some of the oldest deepest rivalries that are in sports. And, when you start talking about the North with all of the teams and the longevity and the history and tradition, this is like next level, which is great. You can dive into the history of the game. And we talked about that a little bit earlier in the week with going back to Curly Lambeau and the start and, where they were when he was running the team and coaching, and all the way up to Lombardi and going through all the history of it. So it's pretty neat. It's pretty cool from that aspect of it. Which is great for me. I love to teach that stuff. I think it's important for the guys to know. I think it's important for them to understand the history of the game and where it all started and why it is so important. So I love it.
What is the reaction that guys have when you start talking about Curly Lambeau or some of the old, Packer greats?
Yeah, sure. I mean, hopefully they're paying attention. We're just trying to, give them a little bit of history. So sometimes you got to tell them twice. But, I think it's, look, when you can kind of change up the monotony of meetings or what you're going through that particular day, sometimes they actually pay attention a little bit closer. So.
Have you heard the Slay Lambeau story?
Say again?
The Dirty Slay Lambeau story, Lambeau Field. You should ask about it.
I'll backtrack that one. We'll find out. Great. What else?
How much during a game do you concern yourself with like the battle of time of possession? Like, are you managing your offense at all to try to keep your defense fresh versus just trying to score as quickly as possible?
There's definitely a part of the game as a head coach, and one of the reasons I think I've talked about this before, that I feel it's important to not call the game from my perspective as a new head coach, is so that you can manage the game. I think time management of the game is critical. Definitely from a defensive perspective, a lot of times if our offense is out there, or when our offense is out there, I need to pay attention to the clock and what's going on in the game and where things are headed in that aspect of it. So I can't necessarily always be just on the defensive side of the ball. And same thing vice versa. If the defense is out there and I'm talking to the offensive guys about what we're going to do the next series, I got to be able to see the entire game and try to manage that. So it's a big part of the game. Clock management is huge. It's a huge point of emphasis for us, trying to control the game, trying to understand, where that has turned. It turns a lot in the game. Teams that have different momentums, those momentum swings change. They change at the quarter change. They change at halftime, certainly, and then obviously off of scoring opportunities, and just trying to be able to either keep momentum or regain momentum or keep the clock, moving in a direction that helps you try to get to the end goal. That's always important. Certainly the game is played and you can't predict how things are going to happen. So sometimes things, happen either way in a particular direction. You just got to be ready to adjust and move as fast as possible.
Hey, Matt,
Go ahead.
Boomer Esiason was on local radio. He was asked about the Lions losing culture and the job of you trying to change that losing culture. And he said that he thought you should hold Matt Stafford more accountable to be a better overall quarterback, to perform more than just in the fourth quarter, to be a better leader, to be more passionate, all that stuff. I mean, did you buy any of that stuff? And I guess, does Stafford need to be held more accountable?
I think the good thing for me is I don't listen to anything really outside of our building because it doesn't matter. And it doesn't really affect us because people don't really know what goes on inside this building, which is how I like it. And I enjoy that part of it because it is private to us. I think the only thing I'll say on this whole ridiculous topic is just I'm very blessed and lucky to have Matt Stafford as my quarterback. And there are, everybody else in the league would be in the same boat. He's a phenomenal quarterback. He's a great leader. He's certainly the heartbeat of our team. And, he's a great guy to be around. We're grinding through this thing every single day, trying to get ready for an opponent. It's great to be able to have a quarterback that as a head coach I can go to at any point in time and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or what does this look like to you? Loves the game, loves to talk football, always trying to get better, competitive. So I don't know what else you can ask for.
Really listen to the local radio?
Absolutely not.
I was just curious about the pass rush you have to get against Aaron Rodgers. I mean,
Yeah.
since he's so good out of the
Yeah.
pocket, the integrity of the pass rush,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there
It's
a
really
difference?
difficult. This guy is so smooth in the pocket and his ability to move laterally and slide, and it's a little bit non-traditional, from his perspective. Most quarterbacks, when you see him kind of get some pressure, their shoulders are perpendicular to the line of scrimmage. They're moving kind of sideways in the pocket with the eyes and the vision downfield and that front shoulder kind of pointed forward. You can get a little bit of a tip or tendency based on how he moves or how he turns or how he tilts in which direction he may be going with the ball. One of the things that he does that's so amazing is when that happens, he actually squares up to the line of scrimmage. But because of his arm strength and his mobility, to get the ball out, it's, you know, the ball is coming from a different angle, so you can't really tell where it's going. And he does a great job of looking defenders off and keeping his vision downfield. And then the feel of the rush and being able to slide now laterally with his shoulders square to the line of scrimmage is just, it's unique to him, and it's very difficult to defend. It also allows him to have good vision on the rush. So when he sees maybe defenders or rushers or blitzers maybe dive into a particular gap, he knows where that open space is. He slides into it, and he can get those throws off. So very athletic guy, very mobile guy. The pass rush, you got to be really careful, because if you wind up beyond him or past him, you know, you're done. You're in trouble. He's going to dip in. He's going to dip out. He's going to get the ball downfield, or he's just going to take off and run. So it's very difficult.
Does it mean anything that he's taken more snaps under center? I think he took 27 snaps under center last week as opposed to, I think, 6 in the first 3 games combined.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. I mean, it really doesn't. There's too much into that. You know, I would say, look, sometimes with quarterbacks, depending on the situation,